This is Brittany Blackwell, host of the Resilient Teacher Podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, along with this podcast. Each show on the network is independently owned, and the views expressed may not represent those of other podcasts. For the best education podcast, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey, welcome back. Steve here. And I've got a little adjustment to what I do on my show for a little bit. And it goes like this. In between some of the episodes where I'm interviewing guests and so forth, and we're talking about current stuff going on in education or in the writing world, I decided to do a little short, specific topic focus that's just me talking about something about the classroom or the school building, or maybe a combination of the two. These will only last about 10 to 15 minutes, and there's some thoughts about some things that you can do to make your day and everything go well. So stay tuned, and hope you like them.
It's the Education Podcast, your favorite show, with lots of groovy guests, and they share what they know. So crank it up to 10 and let your neighbors know that here's another show with Dr. Steve Milletto. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. Teaching, Learning, Leading K12. With Dr. Steve Milletto.
Hey, Steve here. Here's one of those classroom building episodes that I was talking about. Have you ever thought about using a journal? Well, have you? And I don't mean like for Dear Diary type entries or something like that, but I mean in having a conversation with yourself to help you get better at whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. You know, when I was in the Florida National Guard, in the Army Reserve, one of the things that we always did was when we planned or when we did war games or when we did activities, afterwards the officers would come together and we'd have an after-action report that was turned in, and then we'd have a discussion about it. Well, the after-action report was meant to for us to talk about what went well, what didn't, what could we have done better, and what lessons did we learn for next time, that type of thing. Well, as I went through my days as an educator, as a classroom teacher and a building principal, those started sticking with me again. The idea of having an after-action report, because I needed someone to talk with, and it really needed to be me about what went on. And so I had a friend introduce me to, reintroduce me to the thought behind keeping a journal. And I started doing this as a high school principal. And boy, was that helpful. And I wish I had done it as a classroom teacher, because basically I could set time to have a conversation with myself to talk about what went well and what didn't go well. Classroom days are so much fun. There's so many cool things going on, and you're working with the kids and doing this, and you had those plans. And there's always something that, well, that was fun. I wonder how I could do better or not get caught up in that, or what made that happen, that type of thing. If I could have that discussion with myself, and we're always well-meaning, because we say things like, next time I won't do that. Well, if you have a conversation with yourself where you write it down and you talk about what could have gone better and what went wrong, and you could see it coming that this is not going to work out, and when that happened and what that point was and what you would do about it, wow, you start creating an opportunity for you to learn from what you did, what happened in the classroom or in the building, and how to make it better next time. If you think about the things we do in the building and in the classroom, as we're working with kids, as we're working with staff and so forth, you really have to make a lot of decisions, and a lot of times quickly, to deal with this, that, or the other, or to implement your plan and to focus on what needs to happen for the day. And sometimes there's that thing that happens that makes you go, probably should have taken a left turn at Albuquerque. If you don't know reference, watch a few Bugs Bunnies. But my point is that, if you take time to have a conversation with yourself and say, hey, today during my third period class, today when I was meeting with the staff, today when I was meeting with that parent, today when I was getting ready to implement my plan for the next week in this segment of my world history class, that type of thing. You sit down, you have some conversations with yourself, and it's about how you could have done better. Have you ever thought about doing that? Because that's so important, because who's going to be more honest with you than you, right? I mean, you should be honest with yourself. If you're not, well, then that's not helpful. And don't look at this as something that, oh, I got to do this. Look at it as, hey, this is something cool that I really need to do, because it'll allow me to fix things that didn't work right. It'll allow me to think forward and maybe predict things that need to take place that I hadn't thought about yet. Well, what do you think? When you write down in that journal, you can have some fun with it as you talk about what could have gone better, or what happened, and did it work out or did it not work out? That type of thing. And you get that conversation with yourself. And I got to tell you, when you write in a journal, if you like writing in big flowery paragraphs, then write in big flowery paragraphs. If you don't, you want to write in bullet statements, write in bullet statements. If you want to write in simple sentences, if you want to write just a couple sentences, if you want to write a little paragraph or a big paragraph or a bunch of paragraphs, that's up to you. That's you figuring out who you are. Have a conversation with yourself. Yeah. Because as you're trying to do this, as you're trying to do whatever it is that you're trying to do, when you talk with yourself about what I'm trying to achieve, was it getting there? Was it not getting there? Was I interfering with it? What was going on in the classroom? What could have been done better? You'd be surprised that you start thinking about how you could do better, and what that plan might look like, and what you're going to do next time. And that next time might be tomorrow. It might be the next day. It might be next week. It might be a month from now. But you put that into place. You talk to yourself. You have this conversation. So I got 3 questions that I encourage you to start with. All right. These 3 questions will help you kind of focus what you're saying and talking about in this conversation with yourself. So the first question is, what happened? The second question is, what went wrong and what went right? And the third question is, what will you do different next time? Those are cool questions, aren't they? So if you take time to answer those, sit down, have a quiet time, have your soft drink, have your coffee, have your water. I like writing with pencils, not pens. I like to find journals that are unique. I have some that are fashioned after cartoon characters. I have some that are a little more serious than that. I just like to find different journals, different places. You might like them all looking the same and you put numbers on them or something like that. My point is, choose what's going to work for you. The type of paper it is, the type of setup that you have there, and what it looks like. That's all up to you. But do make sure that you ask yourself these 3 questions. What happened? What went right and what went wrong? And what will you do different next time? And you'll be surprised at the impact, the positive impact that it will have on what you do during your day. Oh, and by the way, while we're talking about this, one of the things that you should also think about is that you get better the more you write. You get better the way you write. And you get better at coming up with ideas the more you write. So one of the ways to make sure that you set up time to have that conversation with yourself in your journal is that you put a little notice in your electronic calendar. And when that, that's awesome. The cool thing about electronic calendars, and the ones that fit on your wrists and the ones that are in your phone or on your computer, is that you can tell it to remind you. And so maybe what you do is you put a reminder in there that says every day at 4:00, I'm going to sit down for 15 minutes and I'm going to write in my journal. Maybe it's going to be every other day. Maybe it's going to be just on Tuesdays. The point is that you give yourself a reminder, and by you letting those electronics be your reminders, where they send that little thing towards you and it buzzes, or it makes an alarm go off, or it just simply sends a notification that pops up on your computer or on your phone or on your little thing that used to be called a wristwatch that's no longer that you might have on your wrist, that type of thing. I strongly encourage you to help yourself out by having a conversation. And the way you have this conversation with yourself is get a journal, set electronic reminders in your calendar about when you're going to write, make sure you write, and make sure that you have a conversation with yourself centered around 3 questions. What happened? What went right and what went wrong? And what will you do different next time? What do you think? Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Hey, you have been listening to Teaching Learning Leading K12, a podcast to help you help kids achieve their dreams. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is a member of the podcast network based in Canada called Voice Ed Radio. Voice Ed Radio, your voice is right here. The opinions expressed on Teaching Learning Leading K12 are those of the guests and host. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is intended to share ideas, advice, and suggestions. Teaching Learning Leading K12 is produced for educational purposes. Hey, thanks for listening. It would be awesome if you visited my website at stephenmiletto.com and connected with me, left a review, and listened to more episodes. And by the way, you could also share it with your friends, with your family, and your colleagues. Thanks so much. You're awesome.